Hi, Scott.
Hi, Hiroshi. How are you?
Fine, thank you. How are you?
Very well.
How is Boston right now?
Well, every day is a little different and every day is a little bit the same. So, right now, we are being told that Boston is at the near peak of the coronavirus crisis. So, it's an intelligent and well organized city, meaning that you don't see a lot of people walking around. You don't see crowds of people. Everything is closed.
Mm,
The communities that are suffering the most, unfortunately and sadly, are the communities of poverty, the Black community, the Hispanic community, because they don't have the economic privilege to create social distance.
mm. Totally understandable. This is really sad things because there are gap of the economy and the kind of, unfortunately, it's related with also minority and something like this.
That's right.
Yeah. How about your neighbor of New York City? It is situation is really terrible. I heard.
So I have a number of friends in Manhattan and in Brooklyn. Some have
Mm,
left to, if they were lucky enough to have second homes or family,
mm,
and others have stayed. What they are telling me is that, of course, everything is shut down except for stores.
mm.
Um, they tell me they feel pretty safe. They have, again, they have the economic means to have food
Sure.
delivered. They have internet so they can watch movies and talk to their friends.
Mm-hmm.
These are not people who are suffering economically.
And also, I heard that a lot of essential workers, so-called, they are working hard, and unfortunately, kind of a ratio of the essential worker is minority people, and they have a
That's
high
right.
risk to get coronavirus too.
That's right. And in addition to the high risk of the people who are, as you say, a minority, Hispanic or African American, or yeah, let's just say those two, they have to take public transportation. They
Yeah.
have to be more together, let's say. So it's harder for communities like that to create social distancing. And
Mm.
in addition, what this catastrophe, this medical catastrophe, has shown is there's enormous disparities in access to medical care for a country as rich as the United States. It's more than just an embarrassment that these communities do not have access typically to a lot of the medical services that people who are not from those communities do have.
I understand. Not only that, there are issue about insurance issue too. People, hate to pay a lot of money to the doctor for the first time, and then getting worse then they go to the emergency room. It is too late.
That's exactly right. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
It's exposing the tragedy of public health in the United States, which I'm sorry to say is about 100 years old. It's one of the very few developed nations that doesn't have an adequate public health care system. It's not the only reason why this catastrophe is happening to the extent that it's happening in the United States, but it's certainly a big part. And
Mm.
there's a problem, in my opinion, that people see this as an ideological issue of liberal versus conservative. It's
Mm-hmm.
not. Japan and the EU are not liberal societies, but both
Mm-hmm.
both places have public health, and it's really simple. So if
Mm.
I own a company and I have 80 people working for me, I want them to be healthy so they can come to work. It's not that I care about them. It's not that I want the same things for them that I have for myself, but I want healthy workers so I, as the company owner, can make more money. And in the
Mm.
United States, there's not a sufficient appreciation that healthy workers means a healthy economy. It's not complicated. It's not about
Ah,
liberals or conservatives.
I understand. I understand. That case, do you think like this, pandemic changes the society and change the kind of a structure too?
Well,
Do you think?
in American English, we call that the $64,000 question. So after this is over, after this is over, there will be many people who will say, yes, we need to create an adequate public health care system. Then there will be other people who will blame people who got sick, who say, you didn't have enough money to organize your lives, you should have bought more insurance, you don't work hard enough, and so on. So the question will be whether or not Western democracies like the United States create reforms that are consistent with conservative thinking. It's not a liberal conservative issue.
Well, I understand
Again,
this is the eternal issue of the United States of America always.
right. I mean, but the sad part is you can be a conservative capitalist and still believe in public health. I mean, again, Japan is not a liberal society, but it has a public health care system that is pretty functional. It has definite serious problems that I'm very well aware of. Primary care, women's health care, reproductive rights. I know about this, but at the same time, there is greater access.
But because New York Times, you said that you read the New York Times article that still Japanese are commuting in Tokyo, and how do you think about it? What do you think?
Well, it's an interesting question. I'm not sure I understand why that's happening. I understand that people have no other way to get to work. I wonder if the information is being provided adequately about the risks of taking public transportation. I mean, on a cultural level, Japanese do not stand very close to one another. They're not shaking
but
hands.
it's packed.
Right. I mean, they're not hugging one another. So there is that kind of social distance that is specific to the culture. People do remove their shoes when they come in buildings, in homes. So there is that. In terms of public transportation, if I live in Chiba Prefecture and I have a job in Marunouchi, how am I supposed to get there?
Yeah, I understand.
My boss says I have to come in. My boss says I need you today. And I say I'm not coming in. The boss says, well, then don't come in tomorrow either.
I understand. So now from the Boston, you mentioned about so-called health for the mental health while people are packed inside the house.
Right.
Please tell me your kind of feeling. You have been inside the house, and you said that you are lucky to have a dog, something like this. But please.
Well, I'm a writer, and I have and also a psychologist, and my lifestyle before this crisis was very similar. I don't go out very much. I have for 20 years had food delivered to my house. I stay at home most of the time.
But do you have any suggestion to the people who does not have it?
Yes, I have there's two suggestions that I find to be very helpful from a mental health standpoint. And this is documented in research. This is not just my opinion. So the first thing is, and this is consistent with Japanese mentality, which I have learned from in thinking about this. This is temporary. This is temporary.
Temporary.
It's not going to last more than 2 or 3 months at the most. And if we start to imagine for ourselves what the world will be like when this is over and start to picture ourselves in that world, we will be better able to tolerate this, much better able to tolerate this. So that's very important, not to create a different context. The context right now is isolation, but there's another context, and say, what will it look like when it's over? The second point, and the second point is, on a scale of 1 to 10, everyone is having anxiety.
Sure.
So I typically have about a 2, often about a 2. It doesn't get much more than a 2, sometimes a 4, but usually a 2. But there are many people, you and I both know them. Everyone knows someone who is with a 9 or a 10 a lot of the time.
Right.
So what those of us who are 2s, like you and like me, I think like you, we can help 9s and 10s. We should be helping people who we know are frightened. We should be creating videos like you're creating. We should be calling older relatives who are scared. We should be calling old friends and asking how they're doing.
Beautiful.
Because if we are stronger than other people, our community, the ones we help in our community, can benefit from that.
That's a good comment.
We should use our strength to help other people. And this again goes back to Japanese mentality, which is something that contributes to my thinking about this. It's not about you. It's not your stress. It's about our community.
Yes.
And if our community is suffering, then if you're stronger, then you help the community. I don't want to hear only about how sad and scared and isolated you are. I want to hear what are you doing to help your family?
Yeah, it is a global level issue too. Like, I know my friend living in a so economically poor country. Then they are really in a kind of quarantine in a small house in a hot temperature. They're suffering. Right. I'm doing similar things like you.
Exactly. So those two things help a lot. I think understanding that it's temporary and understanding that if you're strong enough, help the person who is weaker.
I understand. Okay, do you have any so-called messages to Japanese and the world based on this pandemic experience? From your point of view, if you have any messages, please.
Well, yeah, I mean, again, what I've been saying to people of our age, you and I are, I think, about the same age, is when you think about the experiences, our parents' experiences during wartime, what we are going through now is nothing. It's nothing. I heard from my father, who was from Germany, what his life was like. And I'm going to tell you, this is nothing. If we cannot create an environment now where we help each other and see this as temporary, then we are weak people, and we're not weak. So think about our parents. Think about what they went through during not so long ago, and what we have is so lucky. We have internet, we have food, we have friends, we're safe. No one's going to arrest us in our homes, So that's the message is it's not as bad as you think it is. It's really not as bad as you think it is.
That's great insight. Yeah, that's great insight. Okay, anyway, stay healthy, all right? And I hope that we can meet physically, several months later and toast wine together.
Thank you so much.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
ボストンからのインタビューでした。スコットはライターって言いますかね、ジャーナリストなんですけどね、彼がやっぱりニューヨークとかボストンとか、特にお隣のニューヨークはひどい状況ですよね。で、特に彼が強調してたのは、やはりアメリカの中で人種とか、それからリッチとプアですよね。こういうものについての分断が起きてて、このコロナの時にこれに感染する人たちってどうしてもね、健康保険を持たない、または医療費が払えない貧しい人たちがやっぱり多くかかっていると。で、そういう貧しい人たちの多くが、特定の人種とまたリンクしちゃうというようなことのね、辛いところ、そこを語ってくれました。で、彼自身はね、毎日、元気に、アパートの中にいながらもね、仕事をしていると言ってましたけれども、一つ面白かったのは、我々の世代、このコロナウイルスのような、ことって初めての経験です。つまりどういうことかと言ったら、生命の危機を感じながら家の中にこもっているというのは初めての経験だと。で、第二次世界大戦とかね、そういうものを経験した自分たちの父親とか、おじいちゃんおばあちゃんの世代と比べるとね、我々ってほとんど何もない世代だった。特にアメリカとか日本って幸福なとこですよね。ですからそういう中で、これ初めての経験だと。だから、ある意味で心配のレベルが高い人とか低い人とかいろんな人がいるだろうけれども、ある程度安定している人たちは、やっぱり不安に思ってる。どちらかというと、年を取っている人とか、貧しい人とか、いろんな人たちをどんどん自分たちから、元気づけてあげるように、積極的にね、コミュニケーションしてあげることがすごく大事だなというふうに彼は語ってましたね。非常にいい指摘じゃないかなと思いました。さて、また次の国を訪ねていきます。